what's all the hyperventilation? What's all the argument from the president about? He's not fighting with us, really. He's fighting against this virus. He may know intellectually that the only thing worse than what we're living through now would be a false start and a second curve where we're seeing elsewhere in the world. He's developed this kind of set of repetition and go-to phraseology, and it's almost like the perfect call, some of his repetition, what he's labeling this. But to what end, do you think?
Well, it's a good question, and I think you saw the president grappling with this. His own aides and advisors will say he's best when he has an enemy, when he has an opponent. But this virus is not like Jeb Bush in 2016. It's not like the media he can dismiss as fake news. It's not like Joe Biden, who he can call Sleepy Joe. You can't tweet it away. You can't mock it away. You actually have to be a leader and handle it. And I think that was one thing people close to him, when we asked what happened in that lag, there was this period where the president thought that his normal rituals and routines could work. Then more broadly in the White House, there is this discussion, and they just don't have a good answer yet because they're faced with a legitimately hard question for any leader to grapple with, which is they want to reopen the economy. People do want to get back to work. Again, we talked about the 16 million jobless claims, the people who are struggling to pay their mortgages, struggling with mental health, struggling with childcare, struggling with food. There's a real genuine incentive to reopen the country. And then you have the public health officials who say we really need to mitigate. We can't reopen. And so it is a balancing act. And that is one thing they are working on now. But the president is leaning towards wanting to reopen in some form or fashion. And that does not mean, to be clear, that everyone goes back to work on May 1st, but by that May 1st date. And they do not have any clear plan yet on how to do that.
Jonathan Lemire, the gaslighting today, again in full view, the graphic we just showed, part of a freeze frame of the video clips that the media diminished the rise of the coronavirus. It seems, depending on what you read, that most of the people watching are the people arguing none of us should be carrying these events live, which is a conversation and a debate for another time. Who is watching, and who do you think he's aiming at? Is this straight to the base? Because this is a 2-hour undertaking for any and all of us who watch this.
Certainly some of this is aimed at the base, and we're seeing the attacks of the media play towards that audience. The president knows that a lot of his supporters dislike the mainstream media, and he can always sort of score some points. But more than that, it's about trying to undermine the press's credibility when the media, when we report bad headlines down the road. Perhaps the supporters will be less inclined to believe them because of the shots the president has taken, the attempts that he tries to paint us as biased, when that, of course, is not what journalists are trying to do in that briefing room. They're trying to get information, and that needs to not be overlooked here. It was a full 40 minutes in today's briefing before the president delivered anything in the sense of sort of facts, of information, in terms of updating a scared and mournful American public as to what the latest was on the pandemic. That took a back seat to his airing of the grievances, his attacks on the press. But he is certainly wrestling with the decision. Ashley is right. There's a real tension in the White House right now from the public health officials who are suggesting a slow, cautious approach here as to whether or not, when the nation's economy should reopen. Others, including a task force that the president is going to announce tomorrow that's going to include the likes of Larry Kudlow, Steve Mnuchin, Ben Carson, and others who are forging forward to see how can the nation reopen it and when. And we know what the president wants. He was close to pulling the trigger to have it open up on Easter. It took Fauci and Birx to show him the models of how bad things could get if we were to do that, to ward him off that idea. He is pretty centered on this May 1st date. He's given himself some wiggle room, yes, but that is what he wants. And I think we're going to see here in the coming days an attempt to sort of really justify that decision. This is a president whose whole re-election is based on a strong economy. He needs to get